You're looking at a photograph taken on the moon in April 1972. The astronaut? Charles Duke, the youngest person to ever walk on the lunar surface. And for over 50 years he's been holding back details about what he really saw up there. Not because NASA told him to. Not because he was afraid, but because nobody asked the right questions. Until now. Duke recently opened up about something he witnessed during Apollo 16 that doesn't fit the sanitized version of space exploration we've been fed. And it's not about aliens or conspiracy theories. What he saw was far stranger. Something that fundamentally changed our understanding of what the moon actually is. Keep watching and find out. Most people think they know the moon landing story. Neil Armstrong. One small step. American flags and golf balls. The whole thing wrapped up nice and tidy in history textbooks. But here's what they don't tell you. It was about solving mysteries that scientists didn't even know existed yet. Charles Duke was part of Apollo 16, the fifth crewed mission to land on the moon. He was 36 years old, a test pilot. The kind of guy who could land a fighter jet on an aircraft carrier in the dark and still have time to crack jokes about it. But what happened during his 3 days on the lunar surface would turn this cocky pilot into someone who spent the next 5 decades quietly obsessing over rocks. Yeah, rocks. But not just any rocks. 1972, Duke and his commander John Young had one primary objective that wasn't exactly headline material. They needed to explore the Descartes Highlands, a region scientists thought was volcanic. Simple enough, right? Get some samples, confirm the volcanic theory, come home heroes. Except when they got there, nothing made sense. Duke describes the moment he first stepped onto the lunar surface as surreal. The sunlight hit differently than on Earth. No atmosphere to scatter it, so shadows were pitch black and sunlit areas were blindingly bright. Your eyes couldn't adjust. It was like someone cranked the contrast on reality to maximum. But that wasn't the weird part. The first rock Duke picked up felt wrong. And I don't mean spiritually or emotionally wrong. I mean physically wrong. It looked like volcanic basalt. Dark, porous, exactly what they expected to find in volcanic highlands. But when he examined it closer, the texture was off. The mineral composition didn't match. It was like finding a crocodile in the Arctic, and being told it evolved there naturally. Duke radioed back to Houston. Described what he was seeing. The response was basically keep collecting samples. We'll figure it out later. So he did. For 3 days, Duke and Young collected over 200 pounds of lunar material. Every rock they picked up deepened the mystery. And here's where it gets really interesting. The rocks weren't volcanic at all. They were something called breccia. Now, breccia forms when rocks get smashed together with incredible force, usually from meteorite impacts. The heat and pressure fuse different rock types into this jumbled, chaotic mixture. Like someone took a geology textbook and put it through a blender. But the Descartes Highlands weren't supposed to have impact breccia. The whole region was supposed to be ancient volcanic flows. Scientists had been certain. They'd studied telescope images for years. Ran computer models. The volcanic hypothesis was as close to settled science as you could get in 1972. Charles Duke had just proven them completely wrong. Now you might think, okay, scientists made a mistake. That happens. This wasn't just about one wrong prediction. What Duke found suggested something far more disturbing about the moon's history, something violent. Every single rock sample from the Descartes Highlands told the same story. The moon's surface had been absolutely pummeled by impacts. Not just the obvious craters you can see with a telescope from Earth. We're talking about billions of years of constant bombardment that literally melted and reformed the entire lunar crust multiple times over. Duke described picking up rocks that had been melted, frozen, shattered, and fused together so many times that trying to determine their original composition was basically impossible. It was geological chaos. The moon hadn't just been hit by asteroids, it had been beaten like a punching bag for eons. And the implications? Terrifying when you actually think about it. See, the moon and Earth formed around the same time, roughly 4.5 billion years ago. They're basically siblings. Whatever happened to the moon almost certainly happened to Earth too. But Earth has weather, erosion, tectonic plates that recycle the surface. The moon? Dead. Geologically inactive. It's basically a time capsule preserving a record of impacts that Earth has long since erased. Charles Duke was walking on a museum of cosmic violence. Every footstep was on ground that had been catastrophically destroyed and reformed countless times. And if the moon looked like this, Earth must have endured the same punishment. But nobody wanted to talk about that in 1972. The narrative was about human achievement, not existential dread about asteroid bombardment. Duke kept collecting samples. And he started noticing something else. Something he describes as almost haunting. The rocks had colors that shouldn't exist on a dead, airless world. Bright orange soil, green crystals, rocks with rainbow sheens like oil on water. Under the harsh lunar sunlight, the moon looked gray and lifeless. But in the right conditions, it was practically psychedelic. This is the part that Duke says bothered him the most. The moon wasn't the sterile uniform ball of dust everyone imagined. It was complex, diverse. Every boulder told a different story, and he only had 3 days to scratch the surface. Literally. During one of the moonwalks, Duke and Young drove their lunar rover up to a crater called North Ray. This thing was massive, over 3,000 feet across and hundreds of feet deep. Standing on the rim, Duke could see boulders the size of houses that had been ejected from deep underground during the impact. He describes the view as simultaneously beautiful and unsettling. You could see for miles in every direction. The horizon curved away in that distinctive lunar way, closer than on Earth because the moon is smaller. And everywhere you looked, craters, big ones, small ones, craters on top of craters. The entire landscape was a record of destruction. Duke collected samples from one of those house-sized boulders. Later analysis would reveal it was over 4 billion years old. Older than any rock ever found on Earth's surface. Earth didn't even have continents yet. Life hadn't evolved beyond single-celled organisms. And this rock was already ancient. Duke says messes with your sense of time. You start thinking about how temporary everything is. How fragile. How a single asteroid could have wiped out Earth's early biosphere before complex life ever got started. And we would never have existed. But here's where Charles Duke's story takes an unexpected turn. In recent interviews, he's revealed something that didn't make it into the official mission reports. Something NASA didn't think was important at the time, but has become crucial to our understanding of the moon today. During the final moonwalk, Duke noticed something unusual about one of the rock samples. Duke thought they were cool. Collected the sample, moved on. The beads contained water. Not much. We're talking parts per million. But it was there. Water molecules trapped inside lunar glass for billions of years. This was supposed to be impossible. The prevailing theory was that the moon formed from a giant impact between Earth and a Mars-sized object called Theia. The collision was so violent and hot that all volatile materials, including water, should have been vaporized and lost to space. The moon was supposed to be bone dry. Charles Duke had been carrying around evidence to the contrary for half a century and didn't even know it. And it gets better, or weirder depending on how you look at it. Further analysis of Apollo 16 samples revealed that the water in those glass beads had a very specific isotopic signature. Isotopes are like fingerprints for elements. And the water Duke collected, it matched Earth's oceans almost perfectly. This suggests something remarkable. The moon isn't just Earth's satellite. It's literally made from Earth. When Theia slammed into our planet 4.5 billion years ago, it didn't just create the moon. It created a moon that carried pieces of Earth's primordial oceans into space with it. Duke says learning this decades after his mission was surreal. He'd been walking on ground that was once part of Earth, collecting rocks that remembered when our planet was young and molten and just beginning its journey toward life. But the water discovery opened up even bigger questions. Even in tiny amounts, it changes everything about future lunar exploration. You don't need to bring water from Earth. You can extract it from the lunar soil, process it into drinking water, split it into hydrogen and oxygen for rocket fuel. The moon could become a refueling station for missions to Mars and beyond. Charles Duke collected samples that will enable the next generation of moon missions. And he had no idea. This is what he means when he says nobody asked the right questions. Everyone wanted to know about the experience of walking on the moon. The view, the feelings, the flag planting ceremony. But Duke was trying to tell people about the rocks, about what they meant, About the story they told of a violent early solar system that eventually calmed down enough for life to emerge. Nobody wanted to hear it in 1972. They do now. Recent missions to the moon, including China's Chang'e program and NASA's Artemis plans, are focusing on the exact regions that Duke explored. The Descartes Highlands have become prime real estate for lunar bases. Why? Because Duke's samples revealed the area is rich in resources. Not just water, but rare earth elements, helium-3 for potential fusion reactors, and minerals that could be used for construction. Duke jokes that he should charge royalties. He found the good stuff first. But there's one more thing Charles Duke saw on the moon that he's only recently started discussing publicly, and this one is genuinely shocking. Not in a sensational way, but in how it challenges our basic understanding of lunar geology. During one of the moonwalks, Duke noticed something that didn't fit. A rock face that showed clear layering, like sedimentary rock on Earth. You know, the kind that forms from layers of sediment settling at the bottom of oceans or lakes over millions of years. The moon doesn't have oceans, doesn't have lakes, doesn't have the processes that create sedimentary rock. So what was Duke looking at? He collected samples, of course. And when scientists analyzed them back on Earth, they found something impossible. The layers weren't sedimentary in the traditional sense. They were deposits from ancient lunar volcanism. But here's the catch. The volcanism wasn't the explosive, lava-spewing kind we see on Earth. It was something called fire fountaining. Imagine this. 4 billion years ago, the moon was geologically active. Magma beneath the surface contained volatile gases. When that magma reached the surface, the sudden pressure drop caused those gases to explode outward in enormous fountains of molten rock that shot hundreds of miles into space before raining back down. These fire fountains created the layered deposits Duke photographed. Different composition, different age. And because the moon has virtually no erosion, these layers are still there, perfectly preserved, waiting for someone to read them like a history book. And here's the really frustrating part. Based on recent analysis of Duke's samples and photos, scientists now believe the Descartes Highlands contain a complete record of the moon's volcanic history, from its formation to when it died geologically around 3 billion years ago. That entire 1.5 billion year story is sitting there in those rock layers. We just need to go back and read it properly. Charles Duke is now 89 years old, one of only 4 moonwalkers still alive. And he's become something of an evangelist for lunar exploration. Not because he wants another chance to go himself, though he jokes that he'd do it in a heartbeat, but because he knows what's up there, what we're missing by not going back. In recent talks, Duke emphasizes something that gets lost in all the Mars hype. The moon is right there, 3 days away. It's close enough that if something goes wrong, you can abort and come home. You can't do that with Mars. And the moon is packed with resources and scientific mysteries that we've barely begun to explore. Plus, and Duke is adamant about this, the moon is weird. Every mission that's gone there has come back with more questions than answers. The Apollo program was supposed to solve the mystery of lunar formation. Instead, it revealed that the moon is far more complex and active than anyone imagined. Duke collected rocks that were supposed to be volcanic and weren't, found water that wasn't supposed to exist, photographed geological features that didn't fit any known processes. And that was with 1970s technology. And 3 days of exploration. Imagine what we could discover with modern instruments in months of study. The recent revelation that's getting Duke the most excited involves lunar swirls. These are bright, winding patterns on the moon's surface that look like someone took a giant paintbrush to the lunar soil. They're visible from Earth with a good telescope. Scientists have known about them for decades. Nobody knows what causes them. Duke didn't see any swirls during Apollo 16. His landing site was in the wrong location. But recent orbital data suggests the swirls are associated with unusual magnetic fields. And some of those magnetic anomalies exist right in the Descartes Highlands. Right where Duke was walking. He's been kicking himself ever since. NASA hadn't mapped the magnetic fields in detail back then. There was no reason to look for magnetic anomalies on a supposedly dead world with no global magnetic field. So Duke walked right past evidence of one of the moon's biggest mysteries, and didn't even know it. But here's the silver lining. Duke's photographs and sample collection data are now being used to plan return missions to those exact locations. Scientists want to study the magnetic anomalies up close. And maybe, Just maybe solve the mystery of the lunar swirls. Charles Duke's 3 days on the moon in 1972 are still yielding discoveries in 2025. That's the power of bringing samples home. The rocks don't decay. The data doesn't expire. Every time we develop a new analytical technique, we can apply it to Apollo samples and learn something new. Duke says that's his real legacy. Not the photos or the boot prints or the lunar rover tracks that'll last millions of years. It's those 200 pounds of rocks, sitting in vaults at NASA's Johnson Space Center. Future scientists, people who haven't even been born yet, will study those samples and make discoveries that Duke can't even imagine. That's what he really saw on the moon. Not aliens or mysteries that will never be solved. He saw the future of lunar science. A future where the moon isn't just a destination, but a laboratory. A place to study planetary formation, impact physics, space weathering, and resource extraction. And maybe, if Duke gets his way, a place where humans will eventually live and work permanently. So yeah, Charles Duke finally revealed what he really saw on the moon. He saw proof that our satellite is far stranger and more valuable than anyone in 1972 imagined. He saw evidence of Earth's violent birth, and the cosmic lottery that allowed life to survive. He saw resources that could fuel humanity's expansion into the solar system. And he saw all of this while being the youngest person to ever walk on another world. Not a bad resume. The next time you look up at the moon, remember, every gray smudge you see is a story. Every crater is a chapter in cosmic history. And somewhere up there in the Descartes Highlands are boot prints that mark the spot where a 36-year-old test pilot picked up a rock and accidentally held the key to the moon's hidden water. Its violent past, and our possible future among the stars. Thanks for joining me. And remember, the universe is far stranger than we imagine. It's stranger than we can imagine.